Change your mind, change your money, change your life. I am Coach Rob Lee Simmons, the host of this podcast, and let me be your tour guide to greatness. If I was doing any better, I would be you. Welcome to the Greatness Academy podcast. I am here with my man, Dr. Doug Smith. He is a minister and a professor at Emporia State University. He teaches project management, info technology, and entrepreneurship. I am blessed to have you on today, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It was crazy because, we had a conversation the other day and we were talking about money and students, and we already had an initial conversation of, hey, man, I just need you to get you on my podcast. So for you to be like, hey, let's do it tomorrow. It's a blessing, man. I appreciate it.
Right. I know you've been up since like 2:30.
Oh, yeah. I'm a grinder, man. It's funny because true story. I did wake up at about 6 and I've been working on a Kindle version of one of my books. And
Okay.
that's what I do, man. That's what I do. I sleep when I die.
Okay. Well, I've been grinding too, but I was grinding at the gym this morning, and my chest right now is on fire. I'm just saying.
Hey, that's the way it's supposed to be on a Saturday morning. You just got to drink water and get through it.
Right. Listen, pancakes has got my name on it, even though I am not supposed to eat any, and I won't. I'm gonna be disciplined. But I'm just saying, my chest is on fire and I want some blueberry pancakes. So, it's Saturday morning. It's all good. We're both grinding.
No, I get it, man. And so like on my podcast, I often mention that a lot of times successful people usually have mixed in their stew of success, physical training. So how do you feel physical training has played a part in your success?
Well, okay. So, just to be transparent, I am not a gym rat. There's absolutely nothing that appeals to me about being in the gym, nothing whatsoever. My wife, on the other hand, she loves the gym. She loves working out, all of that good stuff. And she decided that she was gonna, do a fitness competition last year. And so that, she's got a strict training regimen and a strict eating regimen. And I, being the dutiful husband that I am, I said, well, I'm going to support you.
Yeah, right.
So I'm going to eat, I'm going to eat clean, and I'm going to get in the gym because you looking all good and everything. And I can't be
I can't be the one.
Right. And, things happen at the gym, old dirty men be like, can I help you lift that? And so I'm like, okay, look, I need to be in the gym too.
Right.
We good, bro. Don't nobody need to spot my wife except me. We good.
I got her. Exactly.
Right. And so, I've been grinding along with her. And I say all that to say this, in terms of what it's doing for me. Of course, there's the physical benefits of it, but it's always about, when you're trying to be successful, about being in balance. That's right. Good. You got to have balance between your mind, your body, and your spirit. And, it just helps me, even though I don't like it, even though every day there's, I'm still chasing endorphins. I don't even know what an endorphin looks like.
Right.
They see me and then they go hide. People say, after a while you get this rush or euphoria. That has never happened for me. And I'm working out, 2-3 hours a day, and I'm still like, man, when am I supposed to get, endorphin? Come visit me is what I'm trying to say.
Right. You're just trying to get through it. It's just 2 hours and you trying to get through
it. Right. I'm, sweating and carrying on, and I'm just like, Lord, come check on your son. But, when I step out the gym, my mind is clear, even though I might be tired and some physical distress, as Jim does, if you're taking it seriously.
Right.
My mind is really, really clear, and that helps. And I should also say, I love working out in the morning, and you and I have talked about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every productive thing that I do happens in the morning. By about 1 o'clock, I'm done. I mean,
Yeah.
I still have stuff to do and I still do it, but my peak creativity, my peak output is surpassed by about 1 o'clock. I'm on cruise control.
Absolutely.
If you want me to do something creative, it's like, yeah, I could give you some ideas, but they're not my best ideas. Right. And so, that physical training just helps to balance and level everything out. I think I can confidently say that over the last year, certainly the last 6 to 8 months, it is, even though I'm 54 years old, I'm in the best shape that I have ever been in my life. And
That's
I have
awesome.
been more productive than I have ever been in my life. And I think that's, all due in part of the working out on a regular basis, and just the discipline that takes. I mean, it's a carryover, right? If you're supposed to be at the gym at 6 o'clock in the morning, every day, that's a good mental training, because if you want to be successful, you're going to have to apply that same discipline. You can't be like, okay, today I'm going to, this week I'm going to use the envelope system to manage my money, right? And for those of you who don't know what the envelope system is, basically when you get paid, you've got basically envelopes that have different things on it, and you put your money in it. And so if it's, for example, gas for that week, you can't spend what's not in that envelope. And once it's gone, it's gone. You might have to, start walking,
Right.
to a Metro card or something, depending on where you live. But if you can't be disciplined in one area, you're not going to be disciplined in, well, you can, but generally speaking, there's going to be some other areas of difficulty. And so this has improved my discipline.
Yeah,
I won't say
absolutely.
that I'm perfect, because there are some days, the alarm comes quick in the morning, and some days I miss it, but I'm back at it the next day. I'm like, you know what? I might have goofed up, but that's okay. I'm back on the grind.
No,
And that's
I
part
get
of being
it.
successful.
Yeah, I get it. And it's funny because I like when people say, hey, being there or getting started is half the battle. That's me.
Mhm.
Like, I will drag up to the weight. I mean, from the moment I get out of bed until I get to the first weight or the first bike or the first treadmill, I will drag. And then when I get on there and I'm like, well, we here now, we committed. And then I have to do it again the next day. So that's, man, that takes discipline. I'm telling you.
Yeah, it does. Being all you can be ain't no joke.
I'm telling you. Hey, so tell me a little bit about your podcast. So I didn't mention that you were a host of a podcast, The Road Less Traveled. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
For sure. The Road Less Traveled, the More of God podcast, available pretty much everywhere. Let me just put that out there. So me and a very close friend of mine, she's like a sister to me. We decided, she's in ministry, I'm in ministry. We decided that we wanted to talk about God in a way that was real, and authentic, and not necessarily, and I'm not trying to throw anybody underneath the bus, but not a Sunday morning sermon or something that seemed like it was out of reach. So we try to talk about a lot of topics, and provide the translation. And so you'll hear us joke around with each other, have fun with each other, but really we're trying to help people with their own faith walk and their own faith journey. It's all about the relationship, or relationships, between you and God and you. and we cover a lot of ground. We cover, just about everything. We're next week, or our next episode, we just did one last night. We're going to record a couple more that we schedule out today. But our next episode, we're going to talk about war. Ooh. And when we talk about God and relationships with God, it's often the case that we as a people like to think of God as being peaceful on clouds. Heaven's a peaceful place. We're having a picnic in the clouds.
Right.
It's going to be soothing, and he's comforting and all that good stuff. But when you look at the Bible, especially the Old Testament, you see another side of God. God was quick to kill folk.
Yeah.
He was quick to call people into action. I mean, if you look at the life of David, King David, he was quick with the sword, and had some armies, marched around and did some things, and put, in the streets, they say he'd be quick to lay hands.
Right.
He'd be quick to lay hands on folks. And so we're going to talk about war and what that means in the modern day. I think there's still a call that God has for us to do war against the enemy, and we need to be open to the fact that we are warriors.
Yeah,
that's part of our spirit, and that don't mean that we want to go picking fights, but sometimes enough is enough. If the enemy is picking on you, grow a backbone and tell them to back off. And just so that I'm transparent, in my mind, I'm using some words that I ought not use, but I'm
it's translating. It's translating.
I'm trying to translate. I'm just trying to be real. And this is the way that we talk, right? I admit that I'm not perfect, but I am striving for perfection, and that is the road less traveled. Right? We all have to meet God where we're at. We don't have to meet God in our Sunday best, because he's seen us in our Friday worst.
That's good. Hey, so let me ask you this, like on your show, have you guys got around to discussing like faith and finances? And then how do you believe that that's related? And then are there some, similar scriptures that could be related to these two topics, faith and finances?
Yeah, we did an episode, I think it was in season 1 or season 2. We're in season 3 now. So maybe it was season 1. I'd have to look it up, but we did have an episode on finances, and we brought in somebody, I think it was one of our first guest speakers, and I mean, it was a great conversation. And so, faith and finances is such an important topic, because if you aren't aware of what God says about finances, you can be easily led astray, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And I'll just tell a quick story. It's a true story. It's about me and my mother. My mom and I, single parent household. There was a point in time where we were living in the projects in upstate New York. We were welfare. We got the bundle, the food from the government with the big block of cheese. All of that. That's my experience. But back in those days, TV preachers were prominent, right? The Billy Grahams and all of those, and an assorted number of other, I'll say, less than upstanding people, right?
Right.
So I can remember on occasion, my mom would send in money, and they would send her back, a vial full of something, probably just tap water.
I remember.
A handkerchief that was supposed to be anointed, and this is just a little kid looking at an adult trying to size it up. I don't know what, we never really had a grown-up conversation about it. It wasn't my place to even dare to step. My mother was an evangelist, a missionary. So maybe she was just trying to sow a seed. But whatever the case may be, I always wondered, that just don't feel right. I mean, you just can't send something, can't call 1-800, get a blessing. And,
get a blessing.
You get you some holy water and, everybody else. I mean, where are they getting this holy water from?
Right.
It's got to come from somewhere. What are they doing? Are they going over to the Jordan and bringing back vats of Jordan water where Jesus was baptized and sticking it in little vials and selling it or giving it away or however they want to phrase it.
Right.
And so it's important that we have a grounded understanding of what God's plan is for our finances. And it's real simple, I think. The Bible, I think it's in Malachi, right? Where he's talking about tithing, right? God gives us everything, and he only wants us in return to give 10%, right? And most of our strategies, popular strategies for getting out of debt are kind of based around that principle that you're going to, take 10% and put it in an account for yourself. You're going to pay yourself before you pay others, right? And that principle, I believe, is way back when people were trying to figure this out, they looked at the model that God set forth, which was, hey, just give me 10%. And we get so stingy with the 10%.
Yeah.
we really do. We are like, I got paid today 10%. Wait a minute.
That
don't sound right. That don't sound right. 10%.
That math ain't math.
Right. It's like, but listen, you got the other 90%, right? To do whatever you want. God doesn't tell you what to do with the other 90%. He really doesn't. And it's not just if we're being honest about it. That 10% that he wants of our increase is not just money.
That's good.
It's our time, because time is money.
Absolutely. No question.
So out of 24 hours, guess what you and I and everybody else ought to be doing is 2.4 hours I need to give to God. And so how do we do that? And so it's not just about the money, because God, God has everything.
Right. He got it.
What does he really need my 10% for? Right. That's what some people think. That's what I used to think. If you can create gold and you create platinum and you can create this and you create that, then why do you need my 10%? It just doesn't, didn't add up for me. But again, going back to what we talked about earlier, part of it is the discipline. Are you willing to be obedient to the Most High?
Right. And that's what it comes down to.
If you can be disciplined, if you can be obedient, then you're not going to miss that 10% because he's going to multiply that.
Right.
He's going to give you even more. He said, if you are faithful over a little bit and prove that, then he's going to give you increase. Now that's the DPS translation, the Doug Paul Smith translation. Don't nobody go into the King James like, I didn't see that.
I couldn't find that. I control F'd it and I didn't see it when I was looking.
I Googled it and then that didn't even come up. That's just the Doug Smith translation. Y'all look it up. Y'all be good. Y'all be all right. Y'all be all right.
Right.
There's also the parable that Jesus talked about investing, about them, and I'm gonna loosely, because I don't have my Bible in front of me, but there were three men. Guy comes up, he gives one guy, I'll just say, $50, the next guy $100, the next guy, $200. And he said, okay, take care of my money. I'll be back in a little bit. Right. First guy with $100, he ain't do nothing but stick it in his pocket and start walking around with it because he was scared and timid.
Right.
The next guy went and did a little, put it in a savings account, got 1.9% interest, really nothing to speak about, but it he invested, he got a return on it. Right. Third guy was like, you know what? I could do better than that. I'm going to diversify my portfolio. I'm going to spread it around. We gonna do something with that. And he had a bigger return. So the guy comes back and he's like, okay, dude number one, what'd you do with my money? He said, I ain't do nothing with it. Here it is, $100. Boom. He's like, oh, okay. I guess that's an option, but okay. The second guy is like, hey, look, I didn't quite know what was going on. So what I did was I went to a safe spot where I knew I could get a marginal return, and here it is. I said, you've been faithful over little, I'm gonna give you more. Third guy was like, dude, listen, you gave it to me. I just went hard wild. I didn't opened up, a Turo hot side hustle. I'm doing Forex trading.
He's getting it in.
I done combinated and trapezoided it and all of that good stuff. And here it is. Boom. And he was like, whoo, yeah, okay, well, cool. We're going to keep rolling with you. Right. And so I'm kind of being loose and fancy with the translation. But the point of the parable is that when God gives you something, right, whether it's an increase in finances or even an opportunity for an increase in finances, you ought to be doing something productive with that. Because at the end of the day, it's not just for you, it's ultimately to bring God the glory, but to help other people around you, because you never know who's looking at you, right? If they see you on a come up, that you could be encouraging somebody, either directly or indirectly, right? If they see you up on the grind, well, hey, I see Rob, he's grinding at 6 o'clock every morning. If he could do it, I can do it, right? I see Doug grinding. If he could do it, I can do it. And maybe I can't do it the way that they do it, but I can still do it how I need to do it. And that's okay. And so there are plenty of instances in the word where there's an imprint, a foundational blueprint, if you will, that shows us, if we are disciplined, that we have the opportunity to do more with our finances.
No,
there's the prayer of Jabez says, increase my territory, right? And certainly many folks, it's tucked away in this chapter where it's talking about genealogy and stuff, and then it says, Lord, increase my territory. Right. You don't get to really be able to get God's attention with a prayer of Jabez like that unless you are prepared. Right. You have that Kairos moment where success meets opportunity. But you have to be prepared for it. And so one of the things I think, we anybody who has a relationship with God really has an opportunity to accelerate where they are at financially from a wealth perspective. And I'm not talking about prosperity preaching or anything of that nature. All I'm talking about is doing what God says to do. Because if you do what God says you ought to do, then God's going to take care of you.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of what discipline comes down to. And in a nutshell, really looking at, when I have clients and I get this question a lot, hey, we are in debt, we're heavy in debt, we're trying to balance our finances. But we go to church and we want to tithe and we still want to give our 10%. What would you recommend to those folks?
To give their 10%.
Give your 10%.
10%.
Absolutely.
Yeah. A very learned individual who is my mentor. I don't know if he coined this phrase, but he says it often. You can't afford not to tithe. Because the moment you stop tithing, you cut off your opportunity for increase in God's eyes. Now, listen, the world you can look up on money. I've been there. Before I moved to Kansas in 2001, and I'd say 1998, man, I was living high on the world, man. I had a 6-figure income, had pretty much no debt. There wasn't a job that I couldn't get. Matter of fact, people were calling me up, offering me jobs out of the blue for more money and at that time that I could shake a stick at. And I wasn't tithing. I didn't have a strong relationship with God. And then something happened, and it was the opportunity for God to kind of reveal himself to me. And he showed me that there's nothing in the world like him, right? All of those opportunities, all of those so-called relationships just dried up overnight. And I'll be honest with you, I tried to get a job at McDonald's and I couldn't get a job at McDonald's. I tried to get a job at the post office. Couldn't. Look, they used to say you could always get a job at the post office. I'm here to tell you that's not true.
Yeah, you're a living testament.
I'm a living testimony. I would go to interviews and they were like, yes, we see you're dedicated. Yes, we see you can do all these things. We think you'd be a great fit, but we think that if you found another job, a better job, you take it. And I'd be like, yeah, I get, you're not lying. But that's not helping me out right now. I just, I've got a newborn son. I got responsibilities. I'm just trying to put two nickels together to make $1.
Right.
And it just wasn't happening because, all that time before then, I wasn't doing the work. I was just, I had a consumption mentality and there was no reason, because I didn't have a strong relationship with God. There was no reason for me to think otherwise, because I was like, man, you know what? I'm talented. I'm young, black, and gifted at the time. I'm in demand. People like me that look like me, that can talk the way I talk, that can put together solutions, whatever. I would just, if I got tired with one job, I'd be like, you know what?
On to the next.
Quit. Quit, and then pick up the phone. I could start tomorrow, and they'd be like, okay. Boom, I'm in another situation. I mean, literally for a number of years, that's how it happened for me. And then it didn't. And I went through a period of hard times. I mean, hard times that I hadn't seen since I was a young boy living in the projects, where, I was getting those notices, the yellow, the pink, the red notices, that stuff is going to get disconnected soon. I had
tough times.
I had the only vehicle that I owned. I made a mistake, and nobody ever do this. I went and got a title loan.
Oh yeah. Yeah, don't do that.
And I was, at the time I was like, oh man, no problem. I was a college graduate. I did the math. I was like, oh, I could take care of that. But I'm here to tell you that I couldn't. I got to a point where I was out at the time I took it out. I was projecting that I would have a job, not knowing that I was not going to have a job. And so I couldn't pay it. And I came home one day and my truck was gone. And so lots of, hard times. I looked in the cabinet. Dude, I couldn't find a bean nor a franc.
Wow. Tough times.
Tough times. talking about tough times. I was on unemployment and my unemployment was running out. I was in an apartment in Oak Park, Illinois, suburb of Chicago, trying to figure out how many days before the landlord comes and changes the locks and puts the eviction notice out. And I remember distinctly laying on my bed. I didn't even have a headboard. I was just, I just had a bed frame, a mattress, and a box spring and some sheets.
Yeah.
And looking up at the ceiling, like, okay, God, I get it. I can't, I get it. You're trying to get my attention. You took everything away from me that was a distraction. If you tell me what to do and I'll do it. And almost like that, I found a job or a job found me in Topeka, Kansas. I'd never been to Kansas before. I've been to Kansas City once on a consulting gig, but never been, further west than Kansas City.
Right.
And really not even, it was just the opportunity was outside of the airport. So I literally just took a cab across the street, did my job, and then took a cab back to the airport and went back to Chicago. Didn't know anything else about Kansas except for the Wizard of Oz and the Wiz.
Yeah. Yeah.
And moved and started tithing, and my life started to change dramatically. And I won't say that, the next day I got a fleet of cars and I got a yacht and, some of the things you might hear on some commercials. I had just show up that I didn't even know I was going to show. Listen, none of that happened.
Right. Tell them the real. Tell them the real deal.
None of that happened for me. I still had to grind, but opportunity after opportunity came, increase after increase came to where, my prayer, I remember distinctly after being here a couple of years, I said, Lord, I would love to tithe more than my bills. And if you think about that, that's a powerful statement.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
because
for sure.
Sometimes we are, our bills are more than we can tithe. But if you say, hey, no matter what happens in my life, I'm going to give God a portion of what he has so generously give to me, then what you're going to see because of that discipline and that obedience is that at some point your bills is not going to be your problem.
Right. Like so far removed from the bills being a problem.
Exactly.
You are giving more.
You are giving more than your bills. When I get to my end year statement for all the places that I give tithes and offering, I just get happy because I'm like, Lord, you answered my prayer.
Yeah.
You answered my prayer. I'm giving more than my bills, which means, think about it from a math perspective. If you're only supposed to give 10%, and you're giving more than your bills, then how much money do you have lying around?
Yeah, and I'm a math guy, so I already did the math, and my next thought was, all right, dear Lord, I'm still in a prayer. It's not really a steal, it's a borrow, but I'm using that. I am using that. That's really good. That's a great thought, because a lot of times it's about even tied to the religious aspect is mindset. And if you have that type of mindset of the level of growth that you're trying to achieve, I mean, imagine how far you can go with that. I mean, that's mind blowing to me.
So if you've got, let's just say you've got some student loans that have 5 or 6 digits. I'm just saying.
Yeah, because that's true.
What happens if you're able to tithe more than those student loans combined? Right. So how much money do you have? How much wealth, how much opportunity to do some things for yourself, for your family, for your community, do you have readily available if you're tithing more than that bill?
Oh my goodness. I mean, talk about a complete blessing. I want to transition into I mean, because you kind of touched on, I mean, imagine if you were a student with student loans. And I know you as a professor, a tenured professor that deals with students often and all the time and actually teaching entrepreneurship. So that's a different level of transition from, being a kid to being a teenager to being a boss. What does that look like financially? So what are some of the financial hardships that you have seen with students?
Well, I shared this with you, offline the other day. I'll tell my story. I went, again, I graduated high school poor. I really did. I was, if it wasn't for financial aid, I wasn't going to college.
Right.
And back in those days, back in the 80s, they would just give you boatload of money, Pell Grants and of course student loans, but they would give you money, and so what you would end up doing if you were on financial aid is, they would send the money to the school would take their cut, and then they would give you the rest. And so as a young 17, 18-year-old that had never seen money, I'm not talking about, wealth Cosby like money, but just money in general that you didn't have to think about, can we shop in the grocery store aisle that doesn't have the black and white labels? Can we buy, the label with Jolly Green Giant?
Right.
Instead of having Oreos, can I have Fruit Loops? Can I follow my nose with Toucan Sam on the box? Some people have that experience of never knowing what the black and white labels are, but that wasn't my experience. And so when I got to school and they were like, well, you could pick up your money. I'm like, what are you talking about? Pick up your money. Things like savings had never been really etched inside of me. Right. It was always, you got to get enough to get what you need. And if you got a little bit more, then go do something for yourself because you've been living this hard life.
Right.
And so when I got, checks of, hundreds and maybe even sometimes thousands of dollars, that they're like, well, here you go, your room, your board, your meal plan, your tuition, your books already been paid for. Here you go. My mindset was, let's go buy some stuff.
Right.
You ain't never had nothing. Let's upgrade your wardrobe. Let's, Run DMC, LL Cool J. I want to have a tracksuit. Right. I don't want to have just one tracksuit. I want to have a couple of tracksuits. Right. I want to be a DJ. So let me go buy me a Technics 1200 direct spin turntable. Let me go to the record store and buy some vinyl and get me a couple of milk crates and fill my milk crates up with records. Right. I had a very much pro-consume mentality. Mm-hmm. And so today's students, I believe that they're a little bit more educated than I was back in those days, but they still have, especially students of color, still have some of those same, I'll say, genetic traces of impoverishment when it comes to building wealth and trying to get through school with as little debt as possible. Now, I will say this. It is very possible to be in school, and if you got to take a student loan to get through school, there's nothing wrong with taking a student loan. It's just that you need to have a plan for how you are going to pay that back, right? And yes, if it's a private loan or if it's a federal loan, they'll, when 6 months after you graduate or 6 months after you stop going to school, whichever one that happens to be, somebody's going to come knocking on the door and say, you owe us some money. And by the way, here are some repayment plans that you can do. And yes, those repayment plans can be helpful, but you already need to know those repayment plans are going to pay the minimum. It's just like a credit card. It's going to pay the minimum due each month, which means, ladies and gentlemen, that you're going to stay in debt longer.
Mm. Mm.
And so maybe when you're starting out, yeah, maybe that's what you got to do, because, you're starting out, you don't have anything. The price of renting and all of that is extraordinarily high these days. Maybe going home is not an option. It certainly was not an option for me. I declared that I was never going back home.
Yep.
That was not an option.
Yep.
I'm just going to grind it out, and it is going to be what it is, but I'm not going back home. Some folks have the option of going back home. Their families are set up that they can do that and get a foothold established. But whatever the case is, you've got to have that mindset that debt is not, and I don't care what anybody says before I finish this, I don't believe that there's such a good thing as good debt.
Really?
Debt is just debt.
Yeah.
It don't have a personality. You still owe somebody. The Bible says, be the head and not the tail. And don't be the person that's indebted to, because as long as you're in debt to somebody, they get to have a say in your life.
That's a
Period.
good point.
And so, your goal is to live debt free, to live like nobody else lives. That means you've got to do things that nobody else does. Again, discipline, obedience. And so I think, and we do a disservice to students because we give them this rosy picture of being in college and what that's going to do, and an overly rosy picture, I should say. And, part of the picture that we paint for them is absolutely true. You go to school to learn, elevate, to have greater opportunities. All those things can happen if you get to the end. Right. If you don't get to the end, you don't get to realize all of that. You on your resume, you say that you attended Salisbury State University and that you went there 2 years, and they said, well, did you get a degree? And then you have to say no.
Right.
So really all you're saying is that you've got a high school diploma and you got nothing to show for it.
That's tough. So
that's a tough nut.
So let me ask you this though. So you have students, and some students do work and have a part-time job, and they're trying to get through school. What are some nuggets that you would give to them as far as starting to carve out a financial plan for themselves? And then do colleges have resources for these things?
Let me answer that last question first.
Okay.
Colleges are starting to recognize the financial distress that students can be in, and are starting to slowly put together resources for students' financial awareness. It didn't always used to be like that, and I would say that I think schools are still behind in the curve in that respect. I mean, for example, when you go to a business school, you learn all about business, but there's only 1 or 2 personal finance classes. I mean, what's that mean? Right? If you're going to learn about wealth creation, if you're going to learn about passing wealth on or building a generational wealth, what better place to study that? And I do mean study and that than school. I mean, I would have paid for that. If I could take everything that I know right now and go visit me back in the 80s and have a real conversation and have a class or classes, that's what I would do. If I were creating a university today, one of the majors or minors that I would have would be all about personal finance. And I wouldn't even call it personal finance because that just sounds too short-sighted for me, for my taste. I would call it something else, generational financing or finance. And we would step through, the building blocks of generational wealth. We would have some opportunities to create generational wealth, or at least start, pouring the foundations and giving folks some hands-on experience and being able to give students the space to ask the question that they're afraid to ask because they don't want to look stupid, or they don't want to expose themselves to, or their background, or where they came from, to other people. Well,
That's good.
you need a safe space to have those conversations so that you
Right.
can learn. Right. And so, when you ask about, students moving into entrepreneurship, I don't think there's a better time. As a matter of fact, I wanted to be an entrepreneur early I always knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. My dad worked for IBM for the first 35 years of my life.
Mm.
And in my youth, one of the things that I saw him working and grinding was that he was always, at odd times going out to help clients. And I was like, oh man. And he was dealing with computers, and that was right up my alley. I was enamored with computers. I was like, oh man, that's cool. But I don't like, not seeing my dad on a regular basis. So,
Right.
when I grow up, I'm going to buy IBM so my dad and I can work together. That was my first thought about entrepreneurship. I realized that wasn't going to happen, but the seed had been planted that ownership, right, is something that I have always been attracted to. And so I'm now a serial entrepreneur. I won't say that every single venture that I've endeavored in has been successful, but I've always learned and I've always grown.
No, that's good.
And so if we can start that at an early implant into students, I think that's a great thing. And I always tell business students, listen, take an entrepreneurship class, even if you don't think you want to be an entrepreneur, because you're going to learn some things about how to think, about how to plan, how to act, that it's a crossover skill set that you can use to be successful. And then maybe one day an opportunity will present itself that you can buy into a franchise, start a side hustle that becomes, your full-time career, whatever the case may be. And you'll already have the seeds of success on how to operate and move in that segment already layered into your brain waves.
So let me ask you this. And most people are probably sitting here looking like, hey, we got Doug on here and he's talking, he's dropping gems. And why is Rob sitting back and listening? Because Rob really truly believes in mentorship. And of course, if it wasn't for you, I probably never got into podcasting. You laid out every single objective to getting into podcasting. And of course, I took heed to that. How important do you think mentorship is, especially for young students and entrepreneurship?
I think it's essential. When I graduated from University of Michigan, I had some job offers. But my girlfriend at the time was living in Chicago. I was in Ann Arbor. She graduated a year before me. And so I wanted to be close to her. And I was like, you know what? I really don't have anything to lose by being an entrepreneur.
Mm.
And so I packed everything in my Mercury Capri.
Right, clean it too.
And I drove to Chicago, Illinois, and set up a shingle, Smith Consulting Enterprises. I didn't know anything about being an entrepreneur. I really didn't. But I looked for mentors, right? And, I was stupid. Let me preface what I'm about to say by saying that. I was stupid, and I wanted anybody to be my mentor, to kind of lay out what I should do. And I didn't really appreciate or know, my idea of what a mentor was somebody who was going to open up doors for me, kind of give me a roadmap, make it easy for me to succeed. And certainly a good mentor can do some or all of that, but that's not all a mentor can do.
Right.
Nor is it all a mentor should do. Sometimes, and I say this a lot of times, that when you're taking a test, the teacher is silent. And sometimes when you're dealing with a mentor-mentee relationship, sometimes a good mentor is gonna let you do you, right? Because you've got to learn. It's not malicious, but everybody goes through those phases where a good mentor is going to give you the latitude to bump your head.
Right. Right.
And so mentorship is essential. Shop around for a good mentor. Ask somebody you trust, who do you think would be a good mentor? And furthermore, if they know that person, you might ask for an introduction if you don't already have a relationship, because sometimes you don't.
Right.
I know that my mentor in the ministry, who's so valuable. We talk almost every day, and we talk not only about ministry stuff, but we talk about business stuff. We talk about entrepreneurship. We talk about life. I mean, he has become, a second father to me. That's how close we are. I am so thankful that he is in my life. He has really changed the trajectory of my life. Now, I know I could ask him for anything and he would not withhold it from me. And I haven't had a need to, but I know that that's afforded to me. Now, conversely, I had a student who graduated as an undergrad, went off, did some things, came back to ESU as a grad student. I had him again as a student, graduated with a master's. And then all of a sudden I popped up and I was his mentor. He claimed me as a mentor. He didn't even ask me. Okay. All right. But watch this, and talking about the relationship between a mentor and a mentee, he would call me at the beginning of our mentorship relationship, only when there were problems. And it just wore on me. It just really did. I would go and tell my wife, I can't take this. From a psychological perspective, the only time I hear from this young man is when there are problems, and it's just wearing me down. I mean, where's the opportunity for guidance so that you don't have to get in these problems?
Right, exactly.
And so finally, I had to have the courage to talk with them and say, listen, you know what? We've known each other for a very long time. I know you inside the classroom, outside the classroom. You know some of the same people I know. So I know your background a little bit more than the average person. But listen, if we're going to continue this type of relationship, this is what if you really want me to be a mentor, you need to know that I don't want to hear from you just when there are problems.
Right.
That's not the type of, if you need somebody to do that, that's just not me. That's not who I am. That's not the type of relationship I want. I'm not saying that I don't want to help you with your life, because everybody has stuff and you can't necessarily divorce the person from their stuff and their baggage and their situations. I get that. But if that's the only time that we intersect, then I'm not really being a mentor to you. Right. And so what I would tell other people, whether you're a student or you're not too grown to have a mentor. You're just not. It doesn't, everybody, I think, you need somebody that's going to edify you, that's going to challenge you, and somebody that's going to tell you to your face that you're wrong, that you trust enough that you're open to that criticism when it comes, when it hits you in the face. It's going to stop you and force you to think. And so I believe, that was a very long answer to a very short question.
I love it.
Mentorship is essential if I could write a book, it would be called Mentorship is Essential for the Soul.
Oh, I think I might have just gave you the book title for your next book, sir.
Okay, you can be my co-author.
I love it. Hey, we're going to wrap up the show, man. I really appreciate having you on. Hopefully you can make some more time for me again and we can do this again. I truly appreciate it.
My microphone is always open for you.
I appreciate it, and I'm truly humbled. Thank you for dropping gems on the show.
I'm just trying to get that goat free merch. Is what I'm trying to do.
I owe you. In fact, that's I got you. I owe you. I owe you a goat.
So I'm just trying to give a shout out. I'm just trying to put a plug in for you. So if you haven't gone to where's it at on the Greatness Academy website?
Yeah, so you just go to lifejourneyfn.com/shop. Yeah, you can get you a GOAT t-shirt, get the GOAT hoodies, and we got the cups and spoons and pencils coming soon too. We ain't got spoons yet, but they coming soon.
Oh, okay.
They coming soon. We gonna make it happen.
Y'all got those spoons. Y'all took gone to the next level.
Yeah,
man.
We getting it. And it's the one thing that you spoke about. Sometimes you just think of things on how you can do them, and then you have to take the top off and look at what you're trying to accomplish limitlessly. When you see that there is no limit, when sky's the limit, just go. So I said, one day my son sat down, he started writing out some things, and because he's a great artist. And I said, hey, I need you to draw me a goat. He said, for what? I said, you'll see. And I let him go ahead, etch the goat. Boom, stuck it on the shirt, stuck it on the classes, and we just started rolling from there. And man.
So I know we're trying to wrap up, but I want to demonstrate how two people, when they have a great relationship, can help elevate each other. So watch this. Since you mentioned the spoons are coming, if you don't already do this, you need to do this, right? To get the word out. When you send stuff out, you need to have like a bumper sticker or something, a decal that you put into the package that has a QR code, so that then when those folks who get the goat spoon and the goat hat and the goat cup and the goat gym shorts and and they're getting their goat kit, right? And they get this decal and they're going to put it on their car or someplace where other people are going to be like, what's that about? There's a QR code. Let me just go ahead and scan that. Boom. They get taken to lifejourney.com.
That's dope nuggets. I love it. Every day, all the time. And so on the show, we always say winners win. And I really want to thank you for being a winner and being a part of the show.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
All right, we out. Boom. Thank you for joining the podcast. And remember, change your mind, change your money, change your life. We out.